Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks all for coming. Greg, Nina, Griff, I'm really excited. I think all of your amazing panelists who last year was supposed to be here too. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but which gives more spotlight to you. And I'm sure all of you have a lot to say, and there are many, many questions. So, from my point of view, this panel is about DAOs in general, but obviously because the DAO was the first big experiment, and it's so fresh, and there's so many things that we can learn. My first question would be, what can we learn from the DAO for the next DAO? That is the first question, but before I would like to introduce the panelists. So here is Griff. Griff is, works at Login and is the community manager and Mr. Sabinol at the moment to try and refund everybody. I know, we're both on that team. But now when you, he has been very, very active in the last months, very close to the community, trying to communicate what is going on. And I think Griff has the best insights of how community reacts to information and what they feel. So I'm looking forward to your insights apart from the technical part. Nina here is from BMA Piper, and you work in corporate law, are very interested in corporate finance. You're very interested in the DAO. You approached us, the curators of the DAO, and we've been talking ever since. And governance of decentralized autonomous organizations and smart contracts in general is one of your interests, so this is why you're here. Thank you for coming. And Greg, he is a former lawyer, and now in the last few years has been working very closely in the crypto world. First was Rive, then IP, BigChainDB, now the director of IPTG. Would you like to introduce yourself in a few words? And also, at the same time, say what you think that the biggest learnings are for the next DAO? What we do.
So lately, my energy is going into IPDB, the Interplanetary Database, which is trying to build a group of organizations to run blockchain-style database that anyone can use. And when we were announcing it, it was right at the height of the very peak of the DAO, with lots of money pouring in, and it looking like it was going to be a world-changing event. And people were asking why we were not setting up as a DAO. And at the time, it seemed like maybe we made the wrong choice. Like maybe we should have jumped on the bandwagon and had our own DAO system for governance. But our answer was we wanted to go slowly, and we knew that we were trying a lot of new things as it was. We didn't want to add another new thing with all the complexities on top. Our approach has always kind of been to slow down and keep humans involved. And I think that's going to be the next stage of DAO evolution, figuring out the appropriate place for humans to be involved, because it's very difficult to program for all the weirdness of people. And people get themselves into really strange situations, as I'm sure you're finding on edge cases. So keeping humans involved to pick up the slack where the machines aren't able to really determine the right outcome is probably going to be my focus in the next while.
Okay, Nina, a few words to yourself and your outlook.
Yeah, actually, I got in touch with the curators of the DAO following a speech I held about the legal implications of blockchain solutions. And at the end, I just said, and then there's one thing that's I just came across, and that's the DAO. Have you ever heard about it? All things like that. There were a lot of startups working in the blockchain field, and that's really fascinating. From my perspective, as finance lawyers, while they're working on exactly, such structures, it's really, really amazing that people simply, just start from the scratch and create something without obviously having ever, take the how is it sort of done like a big business. And then I said, I really, really wish the makers of the DAO good luck, because actually it's so often usable. But it's still amazing, right? And then, we had a huge discussion followed from that, and one of the players was, listening to kind of just around saying, oh, property, what is this? And then we started discussing, and I thought, what's really missing is the link between the blockchain community and the legal space to some extent. And I think, even if you don't like all the law firms and businesses, if you want to do something completely on your own, nevertheless, leverage the knowledge that is out there. So you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So just, communicate. There are so many lawyers interested in this area, and use them. That was like the method I was trying to bring out back then, and since then also the language channel. That's like simply involve the people interested and grab their knowledge and use it. You don't have to reinvent everything on your own.
Exactly. Law is one aspect, the human factor, social sciences in general.
So much
so many
that
models.
built in, if you want to do that,
That's already out there. Yeah. So.
And it's good that this now all starts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you hit it. The next generations of DAO will probably be more inclusive. For the DAO, their goal was kind of to let it be a completely open source, decentralized project. So, although Slockett led the development of the open source GitHub repository where all the DAO code was, we didn't deploy the DAO. We just had a project in our project kind of was. The goal, it was a 3-step project. We wanted to create an access-based economy, or an IoT blockchain economy. And so we wanted to create this thing called Universal Sharing Network. And we wanted the DAO to be at the top of it, or a DAO, really. And so when we were we were building a community around that idea that, hey, we want to create an access-based economy, but to do it, to decentralize the sharing economy, we need a decentralized governance system. And so the first step was just to kind of create a DAO, and we helped write the code for that, and there was lots of community input, and it was open source for maybe 6 months, but no one took it as seriously as it became. No one knew it would be such a big thing. Obviously, if people knew $100 million that were going into that thing, there would have been all sorts of lawyer calls and all sorts of, it probably would have never gotten launched for until 2017. We would have been talking about it forever. But it just kind of grew, and we one of the design choices we made after watching the Digits DAO. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but they held like a crowd sale, and they had a cap at 5 million. It was over in 14 hours, and they didn't have nearly the community that we had. And so we were worried that, because we of course considered the cap, which I'm sure will have some kind of creative cap built in because projects just don't need to get this big. Not to say, it's way too much. So we'll find a way to, if we end up making another DAO, or other DAOs that get created, I'm sure on the Ethereum platform they will need to have a cap where they will not get community support. And there'll be a creative way to do it, but at the time, we were like, well, if we make a cap at $10 million, maybe one guy will buy all the tokens in the first hour, and it'll just be his DAO. So.
But that's interesting, because if you take a look at how the bond issuances work, you can actually, manage that. You can actually say, ideally, for like 10 million tokens, I would like to have 10 million tokens, right? And then you collect it, and after the sign-up period, you actually designate the tokens.
Well, but who designates?
According to the rule, that's not discretionary. But you're saying, I want to have a high number as people as possible involved, right? I want to have as little concentration as possible. You can set the rules.
Well, so this is the whole thing with the DAO is that we're not setting the rules. This is your guys' project. We want to work for it. We're going to help you guys around, and if somebody wants to make it a certain way, they can. But in the end, it's decentralized. The whole goal.
So the premise was a different one. Now the question should that be maybe done in a different way?
Because it's first decentralization to prevent people buying those large stakes.
I think there's a lot of flexibility in in law and in the existing legal structures that have had hundreds of years to evolve and have learned all of the loopholes that people find and the tricks and the traps along the way, and have dealt with them. And it's very difficult to code all of those from scratch. You really are starting from zero, yeah. And even if you were trying to replicate all those things, it's nearly impossible. But taking into account is absolutely critical. And I think trying to launch with bare code is, I don't want to say never going to happen, but it's going to be a long time.
So maybe to the next question. So the learning here is like DAOs are a great vehicle, and let's merge the crypto community with lawyers, with the social scientists who have been working all these design patterns that we have, and the next DAO will be much more powerful if we have an interdisciplinary team creating it. And then the next question is like the big discussion after the attack was the discussion of the rule of code, the spirit of the code, consensus. Does consensus rule when the code is not enough? What is your take on it? It's just a few key words, and they're so complex, and our time is very short, and there are more questions, I know. But yeah.
Someone who's just saying that humans should be involved at every stage. My actual take on it is the other way around. That it should have been time to lick the wounds and move on. That you should treat the actual code and the blockchain as kind of a constitution, and that the contract is the level where that kind of stuff should be built in. There should never be a hard work to deal with a problem in a contract. It's nice that this has happened today after this is all said and done, so it doesn't turn into a campaign, it's more retrospective, but I think the principled approach would have been different, but I think there was a lot of incentive to go the way that it did, and I think it's time to move forward from there.
So moving forward means that we need better governance mechanisms on the smart contract level to avoid having to hard fork in the future.
Yeah, I think that this was a very good lesson for that.
Okay. Well, for me, it was very interesting to actually recognize the role of the miners, right? I was only thinking about blockchain, but I never really realized how powerful the miners are. And if you take a closer look into how the miners are set up, it's a true business, right? It's not a 15-year-old, computer freak, providing the computer a server. This is big business, and it tends to concentrate. So we can't, I understood, like really big miner pools having about 20% or something, and just take that into account. That's not. So that's enough. So I believe, one big lesson I learned from this is, how to actually provide for decentralized mining systems.
So do we need a kind of checks and balances for the mining system? Or do we need checks and balances for the blockchain? Like if the blockchain is the constitution, then where are our checks and balances there?
And for example, with the DAO, I immediately thought, the group that needs to decide about the fork, yes or no, it's typically the token holders and nobody else. It's their funds, it's their DAO, right? So they should decide
whether they want to
fork or not.
Even though different community.
I know, but even though they should have, they should have at least voiced what they want, and I think that would have been a strong recommendation to either hold the fork or not, because that's like, they would have authorized to say yes, it's our DAO, and yes, we permit you to do that.
I mean, really, the DAO token holders were begging because all the incentive is like, back our money, our DAO tokens used to be backed by Ether, and a lot of that was just stolen. Please help us get that.
I think it happened. But I think you didn't make a true vote.
No, and that's the thing, that the hard fork vote actually did not take, because there was a decentralized voting mechanism called Carbon Vote, where anyone could put their Ether, they could send a transaction to a yes or a no address, and then the ether that's in their account would be counted as a vote in either yes or no for the hard fork. And so everyone who held ether got to vote, but all of the DAO token holders were excluded from that vote because their ether was locked up in the DAO. And that was 14% of an actual ether in Ethereum. Yeah, and that's really why the hard fork probably got pushed, because of the big numbers and the potential to move to proof of stake. And really, this was one of the largest heists in internet history, $50 million. And I actually love this podcast, Bitcoin's Gravy. And at the end of a lot of them, he quotes Edwin Burke, and he says, all it takes for evil to, oh man, I'm going to push the quote, but all it takes for evil to win is for good men to do that. And that was kind of the position that Ethereum was in, where it's like, well, we can let the hacker take the money, because that is kind of the ideal of the platform. Code is law. But in the end, code is only law because of the consensus behind the code. If you write your own open source code and you put it out there and no one cares about it, it's not really law. But, sorry, go ahead.
Just two very quick points. The first is, I think what you were saying about mine is really mostly one thing that the decentralization community has guarded against in general, which is this trend toward being decentralized.
Yeah.
That we instinctively try and hope to be better at I did. And that's a dangerous way to think if you want to think in a decentralized way. And the other is just the various competing interests that were at play in the hard fork. You have so much money on the table, it's very difficult for people to make good decisions when they're thinking, why I just lost a few $100,000 either, and I am not going to have any influence when we stake because I just lost all that either. There's so many competing interests here that we really need to make these decisions when people aren't afraid of losing their power.
There were too many vested interests. And
before we go to the next question, I wanted to comment on the mining centralization. Because one thing I learned actually in the Ethereum network, the mining centralization isn't as important as it is in the Bitcoin network. Because all the exchanges, all of the DApp developers, everyone had the petition. And yes, the miners are going to be like, there's going to be a difficulty level, and one chain is going to go faster than the other. Miners are definitely the most important of the groups. But if all of the exchanges and DApp developers pick one chain, and the miners mostly went with the other chain, the miners would just be wasting their money, because no exchanges would call the ether that they're mining and give it value. They would have to end up creating their own exchanges for those different ether, and the miners that stayed on the block, on the chain that everyone else had a consensus with, that everyone agreed was the right chain, those are the ether that would have value. Because the value of ether is determined by the belief. The value of all currencies is determined by belief. And the belief in the network is the most.
Getting back to governance questions. So I guess, so what we saw was that the DAO didn't have enough governance tools, because the plan was, well, the because is maybe irrelevant here. So maybe the question is, from your point of view, governance beyond code, what do we need at the smart contract level for these things when not to happen in that level?
I think it's unpopular among some people, but I think if you're going to have a contract that's doing important stuff, you need to have an off switch. So if things start to go really wrong, the humans in the room can step in and turn it off. And that's going to be even more important as we move towards artificial intelligences at some level, either really small ones or more powerful ones, taking part in DAOs. Because they quite easily run out of control. And that's something we really need to guard for. And I'm not talking Skynet AIs, I'm talking like investment algorithms or things that are making small scale decisions, but still have the ability to have very outsized influence when they're powering out.
And do you have an idea who should control that? Off switch? Should it be political control?
I think it depends on the contract. If it's a small scale thing, then you can have one person who's the dictator for it, but if it's a society level thing, you really want to think about who gets the vote.
Yeah, maybe two things. First is that it was obvious when DAO gets so big, and the idea of having collective within collectively manage itself, there's something somewhat, to some extent, practical and difficult. It's really difficult to get people to vote. I guess I'm not sure what is maybe how many people actually participated in the vote. The percentages I don't really know very well. Typically, I would assume that typically people, there are a lot of people buying in, and then they are not following it every day, so they are missing, voting periods, stuff like that, and more people are more passive investors rather than active investors, and that brings you at some point into trouble with the quorums. People said at the beginning, I would say. So that's one point. It would maybe be good if people could elect some speakers, and if people could say, I'm willing to make a speaker, and I've written that experience which qualifies me, and then the whole group, elect people can also recall people, and maybe that could be a large group of 20 people or something, but that is still able to act. There's thousands of people acting together is really difficult.
Yeah.
So the idea of liquid democracy, wherever somebody doesn't feel, in a situation that we can actually judge, we can hand over responsibility.
Well, that's somebody else, right?
It already existed.
It already exists.
Jordi Molina, who's an amazing developer out of Spain, and I know he's not an Ethereum developer at all. He just happened to love Solidity and work on it. He created Liquid Democracy and it was working. I delegated my vote to his contract. It was the first test contract. I mean, that was only live for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, right? And he already had Liquid Democracy. It was already running. We were doing the live test. I mean, so sad. And as far as the quorum percentages, I actually think the quorum, we did pass a vote. After the attack, we were able to get people to vote to buy dark DAO tokens using the DAO. There was a loophole where the DAO could buy tokens into the attack DAO. And that was the only way the Robinhood group would have been able to try to retrieve the funds from the dark DAO.
How high?
The quorum was lower to 10%. But
how many did participate? Because there are some
11%. We actually we had to stop people from participating because if it reached 20%, the quorum amount would have increased. So we were talking to everybody, saying, okay, vote for this, and then we had once it passed, we put it on this because it had to be a certain level. But unfortunately, the DAO didn't ever get to test the idea of how quorum was supposed to be achieved, which was that the people asking for the money were the contractors, were the ones incentivized to get people out to vote, right? So the voters themselves, they're not actually incentivized to vote in any way because that could create a lot of interesting things. So we didn't want to dive into that to say, yes, if you vote, you get paid or something. There's dangerous game theory issues there. So the contractors instead have to sell themselves and say, hey, we have this awesome opportunity that you can be a part of. Do you want to be a part of it? They have to do the campaigns and get people to rock the vote. But we didn't get to go there because no contractors were allowed to. We even had security proposals that we weren't allowed to put out there because there was a moratorium that got too big. Everyone saw it got too big, and no money was allowed to leave.
So I would have a few more questions, but I already see somebody having a question. So maybe I'll start with my questions and open the questions to. So you want? Yeah.
Yeah. Just one question that has been bothering me for a while. In the beginning of the DAO, when you asked for investment, or when the DAO asked for investment, the methodology was we are giving extra tokens to people who invest early. Right?
No.
No, there was no extra powerful.
It was the other way around.
Yeah.
It was cheap.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was the same in the Ethereum. Yeah, so it creates basically you're trying to, whoever designs the DAO, this kind of all is trying to incentivize early investors, kind of a reverse run on the bank, like a run into the bank. My question is, this seems like an awful idea in general because you are trying to get people to put a lot of money in and to run into a thing that they have no idea what it is because they're trying, you're incentivizing them. The question is if this is something that should even be available or should there be a general rule of thumb saying don't incentivize early people to invest because that way you're creating all of this thing where people don't know what they're getting.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, there was a 2-week period for that 1 to 100 price, so that the creation rate, so that people could hear about it and wasn't biased towards one time zone or another. And then the extra balance, which the developers hated, but the community asked for. So when we put it out, probably in February, the community was a lot smaller there then. But there was a vote on the Slack, and it was like, hey, do we want to just have 1 ether for every DAO token, or do we want to have 1 to 100? They said 1 to 100, which all the developers did. But if that's what the community wants, then that's what they get. And then the other thing was, do we want to have it escalated at the end, and the community asked for it. So despite the fact that Christoph and Lev and all the developers were like, that just creates extra complications that don't need to be there. 1 to 1 forever. The community asked for it because at the end of everyone's, the game theory behind it is at the end is when you have the most information. So you can put in all of your money at the end, know that you're going to get a secure percentage of a certain amount of the DAO. But if you don't have this period where you have the escalating at the end, that period at the end could easily get spammed. And so the DAO, Ethereum blockchain has a block limit just like Bitcoin, has a gas limit, and it's for about $2,000. You could theoretically spam the blockchain and not allow most transactions to go through, or greatly decrease the amount of transactions. So there were a lot of random technical issues where if you really make 1 point at the end of the giant buy period, and there's no safety release valve after that, it could create a problem.
Okay. We only have 2 minutes left, so unless if you have something to say to that, no? Let's move on to the next question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about Nina said that about have fixed rules for how the voting rights and stuff for shares are distributed after the buy-in or that kind of thing. And I think this Ethereum and the DAOs and now I think the biggest problem is probably that you don't have a fixed identity system yet or any time. So you could do it by address or something, but you can have multiple addresses where one person can have multiple addresses. So unless you tie it to some other kind of identity mechanism, it's not really possible yet because you could limit it by address, but then a big investor could just split his shares by, I don't know, 1,000 or whatever.
Now that's a very long time known issue in finance, right? So in order to prevent money laundering, you have the so-called money laundering rules, which force banks to go back to the what we call ultimate beneficial owner. And that's what I said right in the beginning when I started this discussion. It's obvious that in this system you cannot establish the ultimate beneficial owner. So such protection mechanisms are tough to implement here. I admit that. But unfortunately, the EU picked this up a lot, and they started discussing that they actually will require also cryptocurrency solutions to work with the anti-money laundering rules, which would then, in the end, destroy our energy.
Yeah, I want to actually, because this is moving very much towards the DAO, and this is supposed to be a DAO panel, about DAOs in general. So if you have the DAO questions, please afterwards. Is this a general question? Okay. Yeah.
So what is DAO going to achieve? I mean, what is it different on other trust-based systems like money is based on trust, and basically now you have a technical solution that represents money, but it can be abused. I mean, you say you want to eliminate the middleman, but the miners it could become the new middleman or banks that could influence it. And why are you sure it doesn't affect the same problems that traditional money system is also very
I wouldn't call a DAO necessarily so much a money system, although it does use but it does use that system. But the real idea is decentralized governance. So a government could be called a centralized autonomous organization. Right? The whole idea is that this entity has complete control over everything that happens in its world, and you, as a person with a bank account, people in Cyprus learned, that banks can just take that money. You don't actually own the money in your bank account. And so with the DAO, if you try to go illegal, sit in a normal legal way, you can't be autonomous, unfortunately, is the idea. So for a decentralized autonomous organization to exist, it has to be able to control its own funds. And that creates these weird issues because in the end, you're not legally allowed to be autonomous. And definitely not decentralized or pseudonymous.
Well, decentralized, yes. That's not good at all, right? You can do that. Well, currently you can, you don't have to disclose the identity of anybody, but it's coming up, it's looming already.
I think the question is raised is if you really want to be fully autonomous. I think that's one of the huge lessons to come out of the DAO that we need to keep in mind in future DAOs. That there are probably cases where we want some control.
That's a good last comment. So I think that the promise of smart contracts and or the DAO is to have companies without managers and countries without politicians. That's the big claim, right? That's a revolutionary claim. And now the question that arises is, can we really get rid of managers and politicians 100%? And how autonomous do we want to be? Or can we be? And in which use case do we need to have which kind of governance?
Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. So there are many questions, I know. I hope you guys stay a little bit longer just in case there are a few more questions. And thank you so much for coming. I hope you will follow up this thing in the smaller or bigger scale at a future date. Thank you.